All right, guys, welcome to the Janus Project. We are continuing to work our way through this topic of abortion. Now, we've covered a whole bunch of passages already, so you can check the playlist for all of that. We're not getting into the biology of it. We're not getting into the bioethics of it all. We are simply going on what does the Bible have to say about life, and we're specifically answering some of these comments from probably a skeptical Bible of some sort that tries to prove that God is not pro-life. Like I said, point number one, principle number one, first thing we need to understand, God has the authority to take and to give life. Second, God has the authority to bless and curse if you obey or disobey him. And third, God has the authority and the ability, and he does, describe things without putting a moral stamp of approval on it. All right. Now, in the Bible, what you see specifically as you get through 1st and 2nd Samuel, 1st and 2nd Kings, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, these are charts and histories of the kings and the people of Israel. And what you're going to see is the vast majority of Israelite kings lived just like the world around them. And what God is going to do is God's going to punish them for living just like the world around them. On the last episode, we saw this idea of the Syrian usurper who came in and said, okay, I'm just going to start doing brutal stuff. And that was prophesied by Elisha. We didn't look at the actual guy doing it. But Elisha said, you're going to slaughter the young men in the cities. You're going to dash the children against stones. You're going to rip open pregnant women. This is the brutal stuff that you are going to do when you take over. God's just describing it. But again, these skeptical Bibles don't read the context and actually put captions like, God will rip open pregnant women. You can't get more wrong than that. I mean, it's a stupid level of bad at it. All right, but look at this next thing. This next caption is Israelite King Menahem ripped open pregnant women. Okay, remember, God is showing that when you abandon him, you start acting just like the people around you. So to do this, we're going to have to look at 2 Kings 15, verse 16. But you have to kind of get a bit of context. Look at verse 13. It says, Shallum, the son of Jabesh, began to reign in the 9 and 30th year of Uzziah, king of Judah, and he reigned a full month in Samaria. And so you've got Israel and Judah. You got these two nations, and what they're doing is they're describing the kings of both countries, because Israel split in half after Solomon. And what you've got is you've got Judah being reigned by certain people, Israel being reigned by certain people. And so here you've got a guy, Shallum, who's reigning in a city called Samaria. Now, for Menahem was the son of Gadai. He went up from Tirzah and came to Samaria and smote Shallum, the son of Jabesh, in Samaria and slew him and reigned in his stead. And so you've got a very similar pattern. If you go back to the previous guy we talked about who killed his king so he could take the throne, and Elisha is looking at that king going, when you are reigning in Syria, this is what you're going to do. And you start seeing a really horrible description. And then look what this guy does. He assassinates the king, takes his throne, and look what it says. And the rest of the acts of Shallum and his conspiracy which he made, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the king of Israel. Then Menahem smote Tifsah and all that were therein, the coast thereof, from Tirzah, because he opened not to him. So he's attacking a city. The city refuses to open the doors, so he basically butchers everyone. It says, therefore he smote it, and all the women therein that were with it with child were ripped up. So God is describing a terrible event that this king does. It would be like me describing, saying, remember back on 9/11 when the World Trade Center collapsed and thousands of people died and people were jumping out of the building, and then someone reports on that and says, the Janus Project approves of people jumping out of windows. Or I was recording the history of what happens when bad people do bad things. Again, that's what we see here. Bad people doing bad things, acting just like the world around them, and God says, I'm not going to bless you for that. I'm going to curse you. And then part of the curse is I'm going to raise up people who are going to rebel against you, and they are also going to do bad things, which I'm going to punish them for, but that's outside the purview of what we're talking about. Guys, this is another one of those passages, and as you read it, you see it has absolutely nothing to do with abortion, has nothing to do with God's stance on life. It's simply describing what's going on.